All right. Welcome, everyone. Today I have Jason Hill again. Thanks for joining us, Jason.
Hi, thanks, Steve. Great to be here.
So recently there was a little teaser video about the UI UX, and I know you guys have been working on this for a while. I saw like a mock-up of this about almost a year ago now, and you have a little 1 minute teaser, and I was hoping that we could kind of flesh this out a little bit and kind
Okay.
of look into like why you guys design things a certain way, because I'm sure everything was done with intention, that there's a reason the way things are the way they are.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Um, Correct. The UI design and the user experience, all the design of that has been in progress for well over a year. We've kind of established, let's say, the aesthetic side of it, and now we're refining into, certain activities and edge cases that need to be accounted for. At the same time, we're really focusing on the implementation. The
Uh-huh.
implementation is the part where it's all good as intention, but now you've got to demo it and you've got to put it not only through the software, but you've got to experience it. You've got to be able to swipe it and touch it and have reactions. And so it's now a culmination of all the way from one side, the hardware, and to the other side, the user interaction and what they see and what they hear. So that's kind of where we're at. Keep in mind, your user interface actually begins when you're authenticated by the vehicle. This
Uh-huh.
means that when you approach it, you'll have your either your phone key, but really we're starting with the RFID key. So once the RFID key is identified by the vehicle, the startup sequence, let's call it the startup sequence for the control screen, the center touch screen, already begins. So you'll see
Okay.
kind of an intro, and then you'll go to the home page.
So
Now the
that
home page,
happens as
yeah,
soon as you enter the vehicle, like you don't turn it on. As soon as you
as
enter the
soon as the
vehicle, it kind of boots
vehicle's
up.
as soon as the vehicle is authenticated by the user, essentially
Hmm.
like unlocks the vehicle and knows like, oh yeah, this is time to power up.
Hmm.
So the
Is
the
so
reality is by the
uh-huh.
time you do that and you open the door,
Uh-huh.
you sit in the vehicle, the screen will already be on its homepage.
Okay. So the authentication happens even before the person enters the vehicle. Is that what you're saying?
Correct? And that's by design.
Okay. And so when you get into the vehicle, there's not like a power button that you like turn on. It's like already up.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. I kind of like that actually. That seems like a good thing. Because the whole
Yeah,
power
you know
button
what?
seems a little redundant because like if you're getting in the car, you're probably turning it on. I mean, I guess once in a while you're like going in there to like grab something that you forgot, but it's not a
Correct.
huge deal for it to boot up a little bit and then shut back down.
Technically, the vehicle is always on,
Yeah.
but it has different levels of what on means in an
Mhm.
EV. So,
Right.
but we can see that, we can see the behaviors that work for a vehicle
Mhm.
or an electric vehicle. The number one selling vehicle in the world
Mhm.
is it has certain behaviors that we should adapt or
Mhm.
adopt towards. And it also the number one vehicle in the world is controlled mostly by the screen. Now, you and I both know we have, as everyone is aware of too, we have some physical controls, such as the stalk for the setting of the wipers, the
Mhm.
control of the high beams. We do not have auto high beams on this vehicle,
Mhm.
but also turn signals. And then, like I said, wiper control.
Mhm.
There are other things that are required, such as the hazard. That's a physical button.
Mhm.
And it's not even a capacitive touch button. It's a true push, mechanical analog button.
Mhm.
And then we have the backup auxiliary drive state select.
Mhm.
It's funny to hear people say, gear select, but
Right.
really there's no gears, right?
Correct.
And it's so drive state, touch screen, vehicle controls, and it's less info and less tainment.
Mhm.
Tainment part of the infotainment is really what we think of as music in the past. But we're
Mhm.
really talking about a paradigm shift towards this is the central control system and the central user interface.
Mhm.
Um, and that's really the best way I can frame it for you and others.
Okay. All right. So I was wondering how you wanted to handle this, Jason. Do you want to kind of like show us the UI and take us through it? Do you want me to like go through the UI teaser and ask you specific questions?
Why don't we do a little bit of both?
Okay.
And why don't you start with the teaser, and then we'll kind of pull out some of those questions you might have. And my goal is to work towards simplicity and removing assumptions so that we kind of come face to face like, oh yeah, that makes total sense.
Okay. All right. So let's go through this and
Sure.
we'll see what questions I have. And then I have some questions from the viewers. I put out
Okay.
a video about it and I asked if there's any questions that they want to do. Maybe we'll just kind of quickly go through that. And maybe at the end you could kind of run through the mock-up
Sure.
and clear up some things. Okay, so here we go. All right. So a couple of questions. One of the things that people really wanted to know is why the time and the temperature were because like they feel like the most important things should be on the side of the screen closest to the driver.
Okay.
And so they're like, well, what are the things as a driver that you would want? And I guess the things you would want is like the speed. So maybe put the
Mhm.
speed in the top right, the left top corner rather than the time and the outside temperature, which like,
Right.
people want to know that, but maybe not the most important thing to know.
Okay.
So is there a reason for the layout the way it is?
Well, let's assume that we're asking those same questions.
Yes, I
That's
assume
that's
that
the
you are.
number one assumption.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that this opening part, just due to, let's say resources, the opening part is from the video captured at CES. The CES demo is not the same, and I think some people misunderstood. The CES demo on the screen, both the screen and its contents, is not the same as what you're seeing in the rest of the video.
Hmm.
What you're seeing in the rest of the video is the true kind of layout and intent and operations.
Okay.
So
So
I would
this, what we're looking at now.
what you're looking at now,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. Now,
Okay.
even that has some things that we're still working through. If you understand the design process, which you and most people do, that we've got to take input and say, well, okay, that's working now, but what if? Let me put it this way: this is showcasing all the design for success. But there are some things that when it doesn't work, you need to receive an audio or a visual feedback. That's
Mm.
also part of the design process. Some of that is still being collaborated and decided upon, but this
Mhm.
gives a general direction of like how you're going to operate the vehicle.
Okay. So yeah, we're looking at the layout as someone is driving the vehicle. This is the screen that's going to be on screen as they're driving the vehicle. Is that right?
Yeah, let's call it
Okay.
the homepage. Yes.
So yeah, tell me like why was why is the gear selectors across the top here rather than maybe along here and why is this here rather than maybe over here and
Right.
why is this here rather than here maybe and other people are like why is the battery state such a tiny icon like seems like you'd want like a pretty big area of the real estate for that to know the state of charge.
That was like seven different questions,
Yeah, okay,
and
yeah, no, sorry. I'm
the,
like hammering
the,
you. I'm gonna just let you
the
talk.
drive. Let's start with the drive state, right?
Uh-huh.
Not the gears because it's the drive state. So you have
Hmm.
four drive states, and
Hmm.
we included neutral, although you can kind of have a philosophy like why is it needed, but there's two parts of it. There are cases, edge cases, where you want neutral,
Hmm.
and it also is part of the drivetrain. So we have to account for that in the user input and experience. So. We, of course, in the design process, we look at placement and where the eyes go and what are the most important things. And I didn't really, or I can't really recall a, let's say, vertical
Hmm.
versus horizontal.
Hmm.
Now, our screen in our vehicle is not as large as others. So we have a less real estate to work with.
Hmm.
So it's also giving a false impression of just how big or how small things are. So that we get to experience that in the real kind of housing and being able to touch it and manipulate it. But it's a little bit different when we're just showing a video. So don't have an answer for the horizontal, but that's the easiest place to reach for your most common things,
Okay.
which are your drive select.
Hmm.
And then there's a hierarchy from What are the next, things that you interact with? Some things are very, very rare for interacting.
Mm-hmm.
But if we stop at that, or if we stay with that top row, we have the need to know the time and the need to know the exterior temperature.
Mm-hmm.
Then the most important thing is the drive state, and you can see the animations that they give you feedback for when you're changing drive states.
Mm-hmm.
The speed is centrally located because it's not as far from your eye center line as you might imagine.
Okay.
So there's the answer to that. We find the relative size of the state of charge, the percentage of the battery, that becomes, it kind of fades away after your experience with an electric vehicle. Now, of course, it's always important to know like where your charge is.
Uh-huh.
But we didn't really find an issue with let's say the ratio or the proportion of it.
Okay.
The little symbol next to it is a always on telltale, except for one case. And it comes up in the video and it comes up in a lot of the reviews, let's say on YouTube's and social about
Mm-hmm.
it. But that indicates that the headlamps are on and
Okay.
they are automatic,
Right.
right?
Because
They
by
are
law, as an auto cycle,
correct.
the lights have to be on day
Correct.
or night, right?
They have to be on day or
Mm-hmm.
night, and you don't have to do anything to turn them on.
Mm-hmm.
They are always on. Now, the case where you need to turn them off is only when you're in park
Mm-hmm.
and you wish to, let's say, not illuminate something if it's night out or to save energy. You can go into the settings and you can manually turn the lamps off, all exterior lamps.
I see.
But
Okay.
as soon as, if you were parked and you changed drive states, you would not have to um, turn the lights back on.
Okay.
Okay,
They
so
come
there's
on
only
their own.
they come on their own. If you
Yeah.
change drive states, they're going to come back to the automatic setting, and then
Okay.
the symbol will illuminate too, that the telltale.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have the mandatory passenger airbag on or off warning. And
Yes.
this is part of a set of telltales that are regulations. We have to take as a collaborative effort with engineering, software, electrical, mechanical, we have to take all the inputs and basically understand the signals. We
Mm-hmm.
have to then understand the regulations and what we're going to show. We have to then package it into the interactions, the up, down, left, right, push, swirl, double tap, whatever it is. And then we have to, the last thing we do is put it in the aesthetic layout. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the aesthetic layout comes from some of the hierarchy that's most important. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
long way to answer that first question.
Okay.
If you have any other questions about the rest of it, we can go
Mm-hmm.
through it in that way. But you
Okay.
can see the next layer down, we have some controls. No, the horizontal. If you look at the overhead lighting,
Yep.
yeah, and then the four settings or the four sub menus. Now
Mm-hmm.
those are all sub menus.
Uh-huh.
So the one that says controls, that's essentially your home page. And if you go to the other ones, and then you'll be able to exit out or go back to the home page always, because you're not using settings that often. You're
Mm-hmm.
not interested in safety that often. You're
Uh-huh.
not interested in the about that often, although you do use them. So they're kind of one layer down.
Uh-huh.
So
So,
then,
mhm,
uh-huh.
like this part right here
Yes,
shows, I guess, like there's going to be different profiles for different drivers. I'm guessing
correct.
that's why it's identifying a driver.
Yes.
What are the things that change based on the profile?
Valet mode,
Uh-huh.
essentially. And
Okay.
then, there's another layer that we might be able to address where it would, oh, this is the driver, so let's set their preferences on HVAC.
Okay.
But we're kind of planning, we're setting the driver profiles up for the valet and for multiple drivers, but
Uh-huh.
it really only affects kind of, at this time, it only affects like HVAC settings.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Because like a lot of cars, they have the driver setting because it adjusts like the seat and the steering column
correct.
and all that stuff for the
Yeah.
different size drivers. But that's not going to be the case in the Aptera.
No,
So
you're
um
correct. And because those are analog for us,
right,
along with the ability to close and open the vents. There's certain things that are pure analog.
right.
And
And
that's
like
a
me
challenge.
personally, I like as much analog as possible. I just think it makes things less likely to break. But that's just my personal preference. But okay, so let me just ask you these questions about like this.
Sure.
I'm guessing this is to lock the vehicle.
Yes.
Okay. And what is this?
That is you'll be able to turn on the reverse camera, not the rear vision camera, the
Oh.
reverse camera while you're driving or while you're parked if you wish.
Oh, okay. And then if you were to click this,
Yes.
does that picture show up like here, or does
No.
it show up like the whole thing?
I'll show you in the video, but it shows up
Okay.
in the window where it says connect your phone.
Okay. Oh, it shows up right here. Okay.
Correct.
And then this, I guess, is the hatch release.
Patch release, correct.
Okay. So then my question is so this area of the screen is the area of the screen that's closest to the driver.
Yes.
And I would want to have things that I'm going to use often here. And so I don't think I'm going to be changing driver profiles while I'm driving or locking the vehicle while I'm driving, or maybe I'll look in the rear when I'm driving. Maybe that's possible. Probably not going to open the hatch while I'm driving. So,
Most of those things that you're talking about, like locks
uh,
and hatch, is for when you're in a park state.
okay. So what shows up here when you're in the drive state?
Uh, what you see is what you get. The
I
ability
see.
while you're driving, though,
Hmm.
if you saw in the in the video, is that
Hmm.
that's how you'll be able to raise and lower your windows.
Okay. Here.
Correct. On the
Okay.
left is the pass or the driver window. On the right is the passenger window.
And it's not showing up on this screen that we're looking at right now, right?
No, and that's one of those you can see it in the video, the demonstration,
Uh-huh.
and you'll notice you'll have let me clarify that. While you're operating the window, you're going to
Uh-huh.
get an auditory feedback because you're going to hear the sound of the window dropping. You're going to feel wind. You're going to know that it's dropping. Same thing when you
Okay.
swipe up for
Hmm.
up and down. When you release your finger, that's where then when the window state will stop. And remember, we're talking about a 9-inch overall travel of the opening, so
Yeah.
it's fairly and it's fairly quick.
Hmm.
You're not waiting for it's a window shade that's just slowly going down in your
Hmm.
hotel room,
Yeah, yeah.
3 a.m. No,
So
this
you
is a
can you can
Mhm.
touch anywhere on here. You just kind of you swipe up or swipe up and
Correct.
swipe down
And
to
it's a
move the
large
windows.
field because you do not want to have a very small button to
Exactly. Yeah.
to just aim at. You want to get very used to it.
Right. I mean, of course, I know almost nothing about UI UX other than that I use one. I use them from, on the devices I have.
Sure.
So I'm sure that people that do this professionally, are going to know way more than me. But yeah, I think for me, when I'm driving a car, I want either like people either want tactile feedback, but if you're not going to have tactile feedback, you want like a big area. So like you don't have to be like precisely hitting a little spot. So you have to like
Correct.
look at it and like track your finger all the way to the dot. If you're like, I just
Right.
need to hit this general area. So I really like that for the windows, which is I think something that people will use fairly often while they're driving. You'd
Sure.
want something that you can just kind of like, okay, in this general area, if I swipe up and down, it's gonna work.
Yeah. And not only that, you have experienced this, and we all have, is that humans are really adaptable.
Hmm.
We cling on to these rituals and these behaviors and these clumsy things that we're so accustomed.
Hmm.
And then there's kind of a moment where we break out of it like, oh, you know what? I don't even think of that anymore.
Hmm.
And an EV especially is one of those products where you don't understand an EV by a test drive. You don't
Hmm.
understand UI UX by a test drive. It
Hmm.
takes longer.
Yeah.
And there's an adaptability period that is really fun. And it's
Hmm.
really fun as a designer and in collaboration with, the kind of the setting the product of how to manage all of that.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
idea is to remove the pain points. The idea is to really understand what you don't need to do or what you shouldn't be doing.
Uh,
For example, we do not include the ability to change between a 24 and a 12-hour clock,
okay.
right? Or kilometers and miles per hour. We will, but we don't need that now. So we're,
Uh-huh.
we're trying to really simplify and make the best foundation to grow the UI UX over time, but you've got to launch with something that's extremely um, strong and solid in its foundation.
Okay, yes, I agree with that philosophy statement for sure. So I'm wondering like the things that I think that I use a lot when I'm driving is I want to see the speed I'm going.
Mhm.
Um, I want to maybe change the temperature. You access the the temp climate control system. and I want to be able to interact with the music and the volume and change tracks and that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. And then the maps, obviously,
Sure.
navigation. So those are the things that I'm guessing most people interact with the most.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
uh,
that's pretty good.
so like the temp like on this one, it looks like the temperature and the fan speed, the HVAC stuff is a relatively small area of the screen.
Hmm.
And it looks like of course, without having like you said, without having to live with it for a few weeks or a month, like it's hard to know. But I'm just guessing that it looks like it's a fairly small area, and I'd have to like kind of look at it to target the temperature and the fan and change the vent settings and things like that.
Okay.
What do
Do
you
you
what
recall what vehicle you drove maybe 15, maybe 10, 15 years ago?
Mm,
Maybe 8 years
yeah, I
ago?
know exactly what I was driving. I was driving a Nissan Maxima.
How big were those HVAC controls?
Well, they were like sliders and buttons.
Yeah, but how big were they? Just
The
if you took a
buttons
visual,
were
like, was it like the deck of cards size? Was it an iPad size? Was it a briefcase size? Like the controls,
it was about like probably like 10 inches wide by 3 inches tall. Yeah.
because of all the mechanical,
Yeah, yeah. They were all buttons like the different vent
okay,
settings were like different buttons, and then the temperature was like a dial. I think
right?
if I remember I think it was a dial. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a dial. And so a dial is you just kind of like kind of reach out to it and you can grab it and like spin it. So it's
Yeah. Or
pretty
you
you
just
can kind of
slide
do
your
it without looking at it.
here, you'll just slide your finger really quickly to adjust the temperature.
Uh-huh. Okay. So n no thought. And then the other question people are asking is this, can you change this around or are these placements set? Like how much
That's
customization is there or is there none?
great question and great aspiration, but the placements are set for the production. Again, what I said about having the things you need work really well,
Hmm.
then worry about or then add value by saying, okay, now that it's all working really well, here's an
Hmm.
opportunity to customize it.
Okay. Okay. Um, and then this connect the phone.
Right.
Are we having Apple CarPlay, Android Auto?
I don't know how to answer that question because
Uh-huh.
the answer is yes. And this is the initial part will be to connect your smartphone to either one of those. Now there
Uh-huh.
is a third option with a hardware system,
Uh-huh.
but that's not something that I'm going to go into today.
Okay.
But essentially, that's the portal sorry, whereby you'll understand through your Android or CarPlay, you'll get to your navigation and entertainment, right? Music.
Mhm.
That window also serves to give a tertiary audio feedback, sorry, tertiary visual feedback about the audio setting, because right below it, you can see the volume.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So you're the owner and driver of this vehicle.
Hmm.
You're setting the volume. Majority of the time, you are setting the volume by using the plus and minus on the yoke,
Yes.
right? And your
Hmm.
first, your when you interact with those buttons, your first clue from a user experience is an auditory one. You hear the music or the sound going up or going down.
Hmm.
The volume on the screen is for the passenger because
Hmm.
they can't touch and control the yoke.
Right.
If they want to, talk over you or turn the music down, that's essentially their input place that
Right.
they now the tertiary will be the little video or the little visual that shows the speakers and the speaker and the graphic getting larger and smaller.
Hmm.
But that's only as a visual, let's say a visual backup, or like I said, there's a primary, there's a secondary, and there's a tertiary.
Okay. All right.
But I hope
When
that answers that question. But you bring up a good point.
hmm
So this is probably a good point for me to, if you allow me to share,
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
I'll let you turn that on. Send request. Okay. All right. Let's talk about this for a moment. Make sure I got the right one.
All right, yeah, there we go.
Can you tell me what those scroll wheels do in this Tesla yoke?
I have no idea. I don't drive a Tesla.
Okay. I do drive a Tesla
Uh-huh.
and well, I'm on my second Tesla. And by looking at those, I never knew what those controls did.
Uh-huh.
But the way that they've designed and the way they've designed the user interaction, you quickly learn what they do. Now,
Uh-huh.
depending on the state, one of them could be for wiper speed. It could be
Uh-huh.
for volume. It
Uh-huh.
could be for increasing the speed under autopilot or FSD.
Mm-hmm.
It can also adjust mirrors. Point is, I don't have a dictionary or a 17 buttons around it telling me what to do, but
Uh-huh.
I've quickly learned how to manipulate those inputs and
Mm-hmm.
find out what they do. This
Mm-hmm.
is part of the opportunity of not complicating an iron ball and getting things down to the simple place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm going to stop sharing at this moment, but this is you can see if you think back to your first run through of the video
Mm-hmm.
and the question becomes like, well, why is the volume all the way over there? Well, it's
Yeah.
only over there because you're really not going to use it as the driver.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Makes sense.
Now,
Now that
you
explain it.
you personally might end up, well, no, I like sliding it there, but more than likely you're going to be using the volume on the yoke, which is why
Mm-hmm.
it's designed that way. So,
Mm-hmm.
and let me just see if there's anything else. Okay. Are we done looking at the whole screen, or do you want to? I could answer some other questions, or
Yeah, let me see here. Yeah, my other question was like so Apple CarPlay, I mean like when I use my current vehicles, the infotainment screen is essentially Android Auto for me.
okay,
Because on my current vehicles, and then so like I have to switch out of Android Auto to access the HVAC system and things like that are
Mhm.
usually on the infotainment screen. So I kind of you can switch back and forth. And so the Android Auto essentially takes over the entire screen.
Yes.
Apple CarPlay and Android Auto on the Aptera, what part of the screen does it take over? Is it just that tiny little area on the
No,
bottom?
it'll be much larger. It'll actually take over the three, let's say the three windows that you see, the
Okay.
charging window, the HVAC window, and then the connectivity window.
Okay. All right. But the far left thing with the hatch and the locking, that'll stay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Because I guess you have to kind of keep that because that's the big area for the windows as well.
Windows, and then some of the other, controls, the lock and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so that's good because like I think you'd want as much real estate for the Android Auto and because you're going to use it for the maps and stuff too, the navigation. Okay, let me see. Let's go through this some more.
Sure.
And all right, so this is just the HVAC system. So I'm trying to like get a feel for like how big these buttons are going to be for like the vents and the AC. Okay, so the dome lights. I don't really use the dome lights that much, but I guess maybe some people use it a lot. And then
What that's a great observation. Remember, those lights come on automatically when you open the doors,
uh-huh.
and they go off automatically. But there are times when you're in park and you do want to turn those lights on. And if you watch the segment, you'll be able to individually turn them on, a left and a right, or you'll be able
Uh-huh.
to touch right in the middle, and they'll both come on.
Okay. All right. I mean that's the whole video essentially.
Yeah.
Do you have I think it'd be nice to like see the mock-up and like how you play with it and how it works. Um
Yeah, remember that the
or
video is an intro, right?
yeah.
It's not meant to be like, oh, this is the entire um, the entire system laid bare. And I want you to keep in mind how eventually, um, although we've been working on this, we have an experience app that
Uh-huh.
we want to publish. Now that experience app will be around Aptera and the vehicle, and then it'll eventually become like the app for vehicle controls. So those will be
Hmm.
tied together. but we're going to launch the app before you have the ability to, tie that together. This is a really good way for us to do it, and it also gives a lot of people a chance to experience the Aptera. Um, so there's that.